Hey everybody, so today we're going to be working on a Christmas card kit. I'm supposed to be doing a Christmas card kit every month, and this one was supposed to be May 2013's Christmas card. And since my daughter got a part-time job, she has yet to work part-time, and so I've been watching her daughter Natalie full-time 45, 50 hours a week. And so getting time to shoot videos and coloring is just something you have to fit in between nap time and when she wants you to actually do something besides play castle. So I'm sorry I'm behind. I'm going to try to get caught up. I still intend to do one for, every month of the year, and hopefully by December I'll be all caught up and we'll have 12 kits that we'll have all finished. So I've already stamped my cute little Winona Loves Winter, which is a Stampin' Bella image, on my Nina 80-pound Solar White cardstock, and let's get to coloring. Alright, so I'm going to start with her skin, and I'm going to use my standard go-to skin tone, which is E21, E00, E000, and for her cheeks, to make them a little rosier this time, I'm going to use R22, R20, and R30. So I'm going to start with my E21, and I'm going to start over here on her legs. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of that, and she's got a cute little ruffle on her skirt here, so I'm going to try not to get any of my color in there. So I'm going to go right around there, I'm going to go around the back of her leg, and down here by her boot. And then on this side, I'm going to go next to that leg that's touching, and I'm going to do the back side of this one. Then I'm going to grab E00, and I want to touch down on top of my E21, and I just want to flick that color out here onto her leg and take up some of that space. I'm going to leave a little dab of white at the top for my E000. Again, I'm touching down on my E21, and I'm pulling that color out towards the center of her leg. And then I'm going to take E000 and I'm going to fill that in. So again, I'm touching down on my E00 because I want to pull some of that color with this color to soften that line. And I'm going to bring that down here a little bit onto her leg and soften. I had a little bit of a line down here at the bottom. Okay, so that's it for her leg. So let's run over here and we'll do her face real quick. So again, I'm going to grab my E21, and she's got a little bit of her neck showing, so I'm going to go ahead and dab just a little dab of that down here. And then up here at the top, I'm going to go right along her hairline, and I'm going to very lightly flick down towards her eye. Oh, and I didn't shut my door all the way, so Adikia has decided to come in to see who I'm talking to. And she didn't find it that interesting, so she's now leaving. So now I'm going to grab my E00, I'm going to touch down on top of my E21, I'm going to pull that color down here into the middle of her face. And I'm just going to work my way along that line and just soften that up. Just a little bit more, I think. And I think I'm going to pull my color just a tad bit down here towards her neck. Oh, and speaking of necks, let's go ahead and fill that in. Kind of wipe it around on that E21 just to soften my line there. Now I'm going to grab my E000 and I want to fill that color all the way in. So I'm touching down on my E00 and I'm brushing into the middle of my space. Okay, I'm liking that. So now let's add some cheek color. So I'm going to grab E22 and I'm going to kind of go down below her eye and I'm going to give her a little rosy cheek. And I'm going to do the same thing for this side. Nice little roses there. And then I'm going to grab R20. And that one was R22 if I said the wrong number. So this is R20. And I'm going to touch down on top of my R22. And I'm just going to circle it and make it a little bit bigger. But I want to use it on the edge, so I'll soften the edge a little bit. So now I'm going to grab R30. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to touch down on the edge and just bring my circle further out. Okay, now to blend that all, I'm going to take E00, and again I'm going to start up here at the top of her hairline, and I'm just going to brush down onto that color that I already laid down. And this time I'm going to brush over her cheeks just a little bit. And then I'm going to take my E000, and I'm just going to fill in the rest of that area. So brush from the outside to the inside and fill that in. So for her hair, I'm going to use E37, E35, and E30. Let's get a little bit closer there. So I'm going to take my E37 and I'm going to go from the corner of her little hat right here and just give it a little brushing right along the top next to where her hat would meet her hair. Give it a little bit of a shadow. Okay, and then down here where her hair kind of tucks in next to her face, it looks like it's kind of tucking in right there. I'm going to give it just a little bit of color with the tip of my pen along the edge there of her face. Like that. And then I'm going to take my pen and I'm just going to pick these lines and I'm going to add some color to those. Just barely using the tip of my pen. And I'm not going to do this one next to her little face there. But I'm going to come down here and I'm going to get these. Like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. She's got some little swirls. She's got some cute little curls in there. And it doesn't have to be perfectly on the line. Mine is not. We'll add some dark color in there. Now I'm going to grab E35 and I want to go up here next to this line I put next to her hat, and I definitely want to touch down on top of that and pull that color out just a little bit so we can soften that up. Same with down here where I drew this line right here. I want to soften that edge. And then for each of these little swirls, I'm just going to go back over the swirl and make them a little bit wider and add some color. Like this one in here, I'm going to leave this one because it pokes up, but this one you could do the inside. And go add some color over here. And I'm just kind of willy-nilly sticking it in there. Okay. Then I'm going to grab my E30 and I just want to brush over the top of it. So I'm just going to take my do a little swirly circle motion and brush over that entire hair area and blend that all together. Like that. I'm going to do the same thing up here. Go in a little circle, brush that all around, and blend that hair in a little bit. Soften that line. And her hair will be a little bit lighter depending on how, or darker depending on how much of the dark you put in there, so you can change that up. So next I'm going to skip down here and I'm going to do the sled. So for that I'm going to use E44, 43, 42, and 41, and I'm going to start back here with this little section behind her skirt, and I'm going to add E44 right along this edge of the where it looks like there's a little line there. So we're just going to fill that all the way in. Then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to set it down next to her skirt. I'm going to try not to touch her skirt, but if you do, it's okay because we're going to add some black in there. So you would cover it up so you don't have to stress over that. I'm just going to go next to that line and I'm just going to feather it away. And then I'm going to take E43 next and again touch down on top of your 44 and again feather that away from that girl out here towards the edge. And I still got a little bit of line, so I'm going to go back the opposite direction. Then I'm going to grab 42, touch down on the 43, and again feather that towards the edge. And if you still have a line, you can go back. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to take my 41 and fill that in. And then I want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to again start with my 44. And we're just going to flick away from her skirt. And then 43. 42. And 41. Okay, and then we're going to move along over here to the side. And then she's actually right here where she's got her skirt and then she's got her hat right here. There's a little blank space in here. And I know there's no line because right here there's a line on the edge of the sled. I'm going to pull that line over here. I'm going to draw my own. Just like that. so that it looks like it fills in that space. And then I'm going to take the tip of my pen and I'm just going to go right next to her skirt and down the side of her little hat, like that. And then I'm going to take 43 and I'm going to fill that in. Like that, just so there's some sled there showing underneath of her coat and stuff. Okay, so next let's go do this little section right here. So I'm going to again take my E44 and I'm going to go along this edge. And be careful not to go outside of the lines. And I'm just going to stop right there for right now. I'm going to turn my girl so I can brush a little bit better. And then I want to brush away from her clothes. So again, I'm going to take my brush right next to her hat and I'm just going to flick away from her out here into my white space. And I'm trying to be careful not to get it onto her. And then we'll want to get a little bit up in here. I actually want to go down here along the edge of her sleeve there. Pull that out just a little bit more. Okay, then I'm going to grab 43. I'm going to do the same thing. So you want to brush right on top of your 44 and pull that color out here onto my sled. And then we're going to take 42 and work a little bit more color on there. And my 41. Okay, and then again I'm going to go back over it, so I'm going to take E44. Just want to soften that up just a little bit more. Maybe pull this color down a little bit. And then 43. And 42. And then 41 I'm going to take and brush from the edge inside. I'm going to brush it this way. And then up here I'm still going to brush over the top of this and soften those lines just a little bit more. Like that. Okay, so now let's go do the front of her sled. So again, I'm going to grab my E44 and I'm going to continue with this little line I stopped over here. And I'm just going to work my way along the bottom edge and flick up so that by flicking, I've got it thicker down at the bottom, and as my hand comes up, it's getting lighter at the top, kind of like a check mark. And I just work my way all the way across, but I also want to add a little bit of color in here, so I'm going to go along the edge of these lines. And just give those a little dab of color. Then I'm going to go with my E43 and flick right over the top of that 44. But I want to also get this line. And then 42. And I think I will take my 42 and come down away from this mitten just a little bit and around her hair. And just go along this edge just a bit there. Give that a little bit darker up there. And then I'm going to take my 41 and fill in this space. And like before, I want to make it darker, so I'm going to grab my E44 again. And I'm just going to flick some of that color in here. Put a little bit on those lines. I'm going to go with my 43. And then 42. Up here just a little bit, add a little bit on the edge there. And leave a little bit for my 41 in there. Okay, and then I'm going to go with my 41 and brush and fill in that space. And I'm going to brush up from this way a little bit. And that's it for her sled, so let's go work on her. So next I'm going to work on some of the red, and for that I'm going to use R59, 39, 37, and 35. I'm going to start with R59, and let's go ahead and do her mittens first. So I'm going to go right along this thumb of that little thumb indent right here, and then for this side I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go right along the edge of the bottom of this little where her thumb parts right there, and then go to the side, and then I'm going to grab my 39, and we want to add a little bit of color on top of that, widen our line out. Okay. And then I'm going to go with 37, and again I want to widen my line out. I'm going to brush him right over those two colors. Well, this time I want to bring my color around on the top of the mitten. I'm being very careful. I don't want to go outside the lines. And then I'm going to fill it in with R35. Brush that around just a little bit. Give it a little swirl like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to go up here and we're going to work on her little hat. And I did each one. There are 3 different colors, so I did one and then I skipped 2 and then I did one. And just to make it easier for me, I started with red right here at her hat. And so I'm going to keep my shadows all along one side just so that I don't have to move her around too much. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to start with my R59, and I'm going to go right here, then I'm going to skip 2, and then you skip 2, and I'm just going to go all the way along here. Oops, let me turn my hat just a little bit. I don't use 59 very much, so it's really wet, so I've got to try to be really careful just to use the edge there. And I'm going to turn her again so I can continue on and try not to make a mess. Okay, 1, 2, 2. And if I mess up, I guess one stripe will just have 2 of the same color. It'll be a wide stripe. And work my way back around here to this side. 1, 2. And it's quite a long scarf, or a hat she's got on here. 1, 2. And work my way down. And you could do a few stripes and then go back and start with the next color. I'm just going to do them all at once. So they're so small, they're not going to have any problem. I'm going to fill this last one in. Any problems blending. So now I'm going to grab my R39, and I want to go and just add a little bit more color on top. So remember, we got 2 other colors. But if you fill in some, because some of them are kind of small, that's okay. And we're just going to work our way up to the top of her head. And some of the stripes are bigger, so you want to pull your color out a little bit farther. Work my way back up here towards the top of her hat. And we made it back up here to her head. Okay, and then I'm going to go with R37. And I'm just going to go back down the other way. That one's pretty small. I'm going to fill that one the rest of the way in. Down here. Same with these. Some of these right here. They're getting pretty skinny. So we're just going to fill those in. We don't have to mess with them anymore. And then as it widens out, we'll leave a little bit of space. Work my way down here towards the end. Okay, then I'm going to fill those the rest of the way in with my R35. And again, I'm trying to be careful not to go outside of the lines. Okay, and I did fill those two in. So up here. The red's not very forgiving. It's hard to erase. But unlike the 29s, these aren't so bad. I don't end up getting them everywhere like I do those. And I don't know what it is with R29 and me, but I end up touching it with my hand and I end up getting it everywhere whenever I'm coloring with it. So I try to leave that for last. And you could save this red part for last. Totally up to you. Just going to work our way right up here until we come back up here to the top of her head, just like that. And there is a bunch of red. So now let's go do the blue. So for our blues, we're going to use BG 78, 75, and 72. And I'm going to start with BG 78, and let's just go up here, continue with her hat. So again, I'm going to start with my darkest colors on this side. And I'm just going to work my way down to the bottom of the hat like I did with the red. At least now it'll be a little bit easier because I already colored one, so I know that it's the next one, the next stripe over. Now turn it a little bit here so I can do the next one. Turn it again. And you could experiment with these too and move your shadows around. You could have this dark on this side and then have it light up here, which I'm sure that's probably the way it should be. It's just I tried to keep them, when I colored it, I tried to keep them all in one area on one side so I didn't have to flip her around 15 times. Yeah, work our way down here to the bottom. Okay, then I'm going to grab 75, and this one's such a little spot, I'm going to fill that in. Same with this one. And that one's got a little bit more space, so I'll leave my, whoops, and I already filled that one in. And I'm just going to work my way back up and try to leave a little bit of space for my 72. But if I fill it in, that's okay, like that's a little scrimpy one, I'm going to fill that one in. Go back up to the top. Oops. Fill some of those in. Those are pretty small. And then, whoops, sorry about that. Move it down a little bit, that would help. And then fill the rest of them in with my BG72. Okay, so I don't go outside of the lines. I'm going to go along the top up here. Oops, and pull the color down. And brush it back into the dark. Same for this one. Let's brush this way. Fill that one in. Let's go down and move my girl up a little bit. Work my way down towards the bottom. And that's it for her cute little hat for the blue stripes. So now let's go down here and add some blue to her t-shirt. So again, I'm going to start with my BG78. And I'm going to give her little arm right here a shadow on both sides of her sleeve. Go back up here on this side. Then I'm going to go along the back of her sleeve. Like this up to her shoulder. And then for her shirt, I'm going to go along the bottom. Like this. And where her little chest is laying on the ground right here, I'm going to give her a little bit of definition right there. Okay, and then I'm going to do up here, we're going to go down the back of her shirt, all the way down to the little cuff, and then I'm going to give right here, I'm going to give her sweater a little bit of definition, like she's got a little wrinkle in her shirt there. Then I'm going to grab BG75, and you want to touch down on top of your 78. I'm just going to brush some of that color out towards the middle. I'm going to go ahead and fill this little section in, but I want to leave a little bit of white in here so I can add some highlights in there. Okay, and we're going to go down the back of her sweater. Same for this side. And I'm going to fill it in with my BG72. Brush on this one. So I've got a little bit of a line there, so I'm going to brush over it again. Brush her sleeve a little bit, I think, too. And then for the cuff of her shirt right here, she's got a little band on her shirt. I'm going to take my 78 and just go along the edge. And then I'm going to fill it in with the 75. Like that. So now let's go over here and do her skates. And for that, again, we're going to start with our 78. Go out just a little bit there. And I'm going to go right up the back of this boot. My 78. Over here to the toe. And she's got kind of a little, I wanted to keep the bottom part metal, so I didn't color clear to the bottom of the shoe. Okay, like that. And then right here at the back of her boot, I wanted to give it a little bit of a crease, like it's bent a little bit. And then same for this boot. We're going to go right up the back of her boot. Give it a little crease right there at the back of her ankle. And then come right along the bottom of her shoe. Right next to the blade. Okay, then I'm going to take BG75, I'm going to add some color to that. So I'm going to touch down on top of my 78. Just add a little bit more of this color on there. Same for this side. And just brush that up just a little bit. And then where her laces are, I want to go right next to the inside of the laces. Like that. So give it a little bit of a shadow right next there. And then I'm going to take my BG72 and I want to fill her whole shoe in. So I'm going to go ahead and just brush over the top of those laces. And then we're going to fill in this boot. And I'm going to get that edge wet there. And we'll flick that up here into the top part of her shoe. And fill this shoe the rest of the way in. And I'm also going to use this color to do this little fluffy stuff, her little ruffle she's got at the top of her boot there. And I'll let that dry a second, and then I might come back and brush it again. Okay, I need to soften that edge a little bit more. Okay, so the last stripe on her hat, I'm going to color W4, 2, and 0. So I'm going to start with my W4, and again I'm going to add some shadow, so I'm going to go right in here towards the bottom and brush in a shadow. And I'm just going to work my way down to the bottom of my hat, like I did with the other stripes. And if you get some on the other colors, that's going to be fine because there's already shadows in there. So this gray is not going to make much of a difference if you accidentally go on to the other colors. It'll just add a little bit more depth. And fill that bottom one in. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my W2. Just work my way back up. And then we're going to go with W0 to fill it in. Brush right onto that line. And I actually, after I got it all colored in my card together, I went in and I added some Stickles Stardust to each of these little white stripes, well, the gray stripes. So if your coloring is not perfect on those, the sparkles will cover some of that up. Okay, like that. I think I'll brush a little bit more right here. Okay, I'm liking that. So now let's go over here and work on her cute little skirt. Okay, so for her skirt, I'm going to add W8 and W6 to my other W's, and I'm going to start with my W8, and I'm actually going to do this little section right here that's the top of the skirt, and not this little ruffly section yet. So let's move her so I can see, and I'm going to take my W8 first, and I'm just going to flick away from her sweater, like so. Go on this side, add a little bit, go over here, add a little bit. I think I'll add a little bit more in here so it's kind of got the line kind of comes across there. Then I'm going to take my W6 to fill that in. So over here I'm going to brush towards my darkest color just so I don't brush on my hat on accident. And then same for over here, I want to go around this ruffle. And then I'm going to brush up towards my W8 just to fill that space in. And if you get some in there and the ruffle is not, it's going to be fine because we're going to use our W8 here in just a second to fill that in just a little bit. But just for practice for me, I try to not get it on there. Doesn't always work. and that is the bodice of her little skirt. So now let's go do the bottom. So again, I'm going to grab my W8, and she's got some great little lines on the edge of her ruffle here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in some of these little ruffle sections. Like that one, and this one's got a line, so I'm going to fill that in. And see what I mean? I'm going to come close to, I'm going to come right up next to that dark color right there. That's alright. And if you don't use your W8 very much, it's probably pretty wet. So if it's getting a little blobby, you could take the other end off your pen, and that will pressurize the pen and it won't leak everywhere. Just depends on how often you use your W8 pen. Mine's pretty wet, so I'm just barely using the edge, or the very tip. Okay, and then I want to go up here and do the same thing, so I'm just going to work my way. Whoops, and here's a little section right here. Let's get that little section. I just want to work my way along that little ruffle edge. And come back around to this other side. Like that. Okay, so now inside I still want to add a little bit of this dark in there, so I'm just going to go in and pick some spots to add some dark color. Okay, maybe a little bit over here, like that. And I just did that willy-nilly. I didn't really have a plan. Now I'm going to take W6 and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to add some lines in here. So maybe not quite so close to the dark ones. Maybe right here a little bit, like that. Then I'm going to go with my W4, and I'm going to do the same thing. So let's add some little colors in here. Okay, maybe up here just a little bit, right in here. And I really have no rhyme or reason, I'm just adding some. Now I'm going to go with my W2. That. And then I'm going to fill it in with W0. So I'm going to just brush right over the top of all those little swirly lines. Maybe go in a little circle if you like that. If that helps you blend it a little bit better. Swish over it just back and forth. I'm going to go with a little circly motion. You could also just add some more lines and leave white in there. I just chose to do mine all gray. Totally up to you. But that kind of just swirls it all together. And then I should have done my little pom-pom here while I was doing it, so I'm going to go with my W8 again. Add a little bit of color. W6. Four. Two. And then my W0 to swirl it all together. And then I'm going to take my W4 and I'm going to use that to do the blades of her skates. Go right next to her shoe. Those are pretty dinky. Whoops, I went outside the lines. So you want to be careful. And if you went outside the lines, you could take your colorless blender pen and just give it a quick swish back and forth, and that'll push that back in, like that. Okay, so now let's go down here and work on the background. So we're going to use our W's, and for our W's we're going to add B quadruple zero and B triple zero. So let me go widen out here a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little dotty background all the way around my girl with all my colors. So I'm going to take W8 first, and I'm just going to, let's just start right here. And the faster you poke your pen up and down, the faster you're going to... Wait, did I start with this one? No, I did not. Yes, you should read the directions first, and then you won't have that problem. Okay, so we're going to start with, I'm going to use W4, 2, and 0, and then I'm going to use B triple zero and quadruple zero. So I'm going to start with W4, so don't mind any of those dots, silly me. And I'm just going to go up and down and make some dots here. Around the sled, down here in these bumps of snow. And the faster you go, the smaller the dots will be. The slower you are, the fatter your dots will be. I wanted mine to kind of be random, so, whoops, gotta touch the paper. Add some down in here. I just want to work my way back around over here to the other side. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm liking that. So now I'm going to grab W2 and I'm just going to do the same thing. And just going to go right along here and give it some dots. Work my way out in here. And you can have as many as you want, as few as you want. Put them really close to the girl. Move them out here to the outside more. It's totally up to you. And if you're kind of iffy on the whole dotting thing, stamper and then do the dot part first. See how you like it on a piece of, on a scratch piece of scratch paper. Then if you hate it, you can always just do some blue around the outside, outliner in blue. Do some of your crafty fluff to just make snow fur to lay on. It's just totally up to you. I'm just going to work our way clear down here and back around to the other side. Okay, she's looking very dotty. Now I'm going to go with W0. And add some of these light dots down in here. And work my way over here to this side. Oops, I better get a few in here in this little space. Okay, and then I'm going to add some blue just for some interest. So I've got B quadruple zero. And I might go out here into some space where there aren't any dots and just add some of this. This depends on what I think I want it to look like at that point. Work my way back down and around to the other side. Okay. Then I'm going to take my B quadruple zero and do the same thing. Just going all the way around, add some dots. A few in here. Way down and around to the other side here. Alright, I'm liking that, so I'm going to leave that like that. And now I'm going to take my Colorless Blender, and I actually should have done the same thing up here on her skirt. So I'm going to take my Colorless Blender now, and I'm just going to soften these lines a little bit more. I'm going to just swirl over the top of her little skirt, the ruffly part of her skirt. A little bit right there. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the outside out here. So I'm just going to go right over all that, and I can go over this pom-pom too since I didn't do it last time. And I'm just going to go right along the edge and go over all those dots with my Colorless Blender and squish them all out and soften them up. You could just leave them the way they are. Nobody says you have to use the Colorless Blender to make them softer. Get in between here. Be careful not to touch that red. And just work my way back around to the other side. Whoops, and I touched some red because I got some red right there on my snow. Got a little crazy. Okay, so that is our Winona Loves Winter all colored up. So let's add some glitter. Okay, so let's add some Sharpie white paint pen to our cheeks. And so I've shaken that with the lid on so it doesn't spray everywhere. And with the paint pen, it's got, the harder you press the tip, the bigger the dot you get. So you want to be careful. It is paint. It's not going to come off. So I'm just going to give her a couple of dots on her cheeks there. And then I'm going to take my Spica clear glitter pen and I'm going to add some glitter in her hair. So I'm just going to add, I'm just following the little swirls in her hair and going over those as close as I can. If I don't hit the line, oh well. It's glitter. Add some sparkles. Okay, like that. And then I took my Sakura glitter pen, which is a lot more sparkly. It's kind of a silvery, it's supposed to be clear, but I think it's kind of more of a, got a kind of a silver color to it. And I'm just going to go over her skate blades. And they will be very sparkly, just like that. And then, like I said, I added, I'm not going to do that right now because I'll get it everywhere, but I added some Stickles Stardust to these gray parts of her hat. And then down here in the snow, I added some Stickles Dry Fine Glitter. I just used my cookie glue pen and swirled it around out here and then dumped the glitter on and then tapped it off when I got all done. But that is our finished Winona Loves Winter. And here is the card. If you would like to see that. Very cute. And she comes with the saying, it says warm winter wishes. She comes with that. And she's already mounted. I love that. But I hope you had fun coloring with me today. And we'll see you next time. Bye.